Dr. Sienna Voss had seen many wonders in her 20 years studying alien ecosystems, but nothing compared to the sheer magnificence of the Council's judgment sphere. The structure floated in the void between dimensions, a crystalline monument to 10 million years of cosmic governance. Today, however, its beauty felt oppressive. She stood alone on the presentation platform, surrounded by a spherical arrangement of the galaxy's eldest species. Above her, below her, on all sides, thousands of alien forms observed with eyes, senses, and consciousness fields she could barely comprehend. The weight of their combined age pressed against her mind like deep ocean water. Ambassador Kethmar spoke first. His species, the Zithkara, had been mediating galactic disputes since Earth's continents were still forming. His chitinous body gleamed under the sphere's ambient light, mandibles clicking in the formal cadence of accusation. Humanity stands charged with biological contamination of the highest order, his translated voice echoed through the chamber. You have spread your genetic material across 4 to 7 star systems. You have merged your DNA with indigenous life. You have created hybrid colonies that blur the distinction between human and alien. This is not exploration. This is invasion at the molecular level. Sienna kept her breathing steady. Behind her professional calm, her mind raced through prepared responses, half-truths, and desperate calculations. The Council could not know everything. Not yet. Honored Council, she began, her voice amplified across the sphere. Humanity's symbiotic colonization represents a new philosophy of coexistence. We do not terraform worlds to suit us. We adapt ourselves to suit them. We become part of existing ecosystems rather than replacing them. A being of pure energy pulsed with indignation. You speak of respect while corrupting the fundamental building blocks of life. We have evidence of human DNA markers in species across the outer rim. Creatures that evolved for billions of years now carry your genetic signature. This is not coexistence. This is erasure of what came before. Captain Jonas Webb's message came through her neural implant, transmitted from the colonial ship Meridian positioned light years away. Sienna, the Council fleet is moving into position around our settlements. This isn't just a trial. They're preparing for extermination. She had known this moment would come. The Council's xenoarchaeologists were thorough. Too thorough. They had traced humanity's genetic markers across too many worlds, found patterns that suggested deliberate spreading rather than simple colonization. But they had not yet discovered the real scope of what humanity had done, or why. The Council has deliberated, Kethmar announced, his tone carrying the finality of geological time. Humanity will cease all symbiotic activities immediately. You will reverse genetic modifications across all 4 to 7 systems. You will abandon your hybrid colonies and return to your origin system. You will accept quarantine monitoring for the next 1,000 years. Failure to comply will result in systematic sterilization of all human-touched worlds and the containment of Earth itself. The sphere filled with harmonious agreement, a chorus of alien approval that sounded like the closing of a cosmic door. Sienna felt the eyes of every council elder upon her, waiting for humanity's inevitable submission or futile defiance. Instead, she smiled, a small expression that somehow carried across the vast chamber. Honored Council, she said quietly, before you enforce this verdict, I suggest you check on the health of your homeworlds. Confusion rippled through the sphere. Kethmar's mandibles froze mid-click. What have you done? He whispered. Sienna's neural implant lit up with incoming data from across the galaxy. On council worlds, in ancient cities, within the bodies of species that had remained unchanged for epochs, something unprecedented was beginning. Humanity's reply, she said, is already being delivered. The silence that followed was not empty. It was the sound of 1,000 civilizations realizing they had misunderstood everything. Dr. Marcus Tehrani had not slept in 37 hours. Through the observation window of Research Station Osiris, he watched data streams flowing across holographic displays like rivers of light. Each stream represented a council world. Each pulse of light marked another activation. It's happening faster than we projected, Lieutenant Sophia Reeves said from her monitoring station. Her fingers danced across controls, trying to track simultaneous events across hundreds of star systems. The Zithkara homeworld just reported widespread biological changes. The Vortani are experiencing cellular regeneration in their eldest citizens. The Methylos colonies are detecting atmospheric improvements they can't explain. Marcus allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction before the weight of responsibility crushed it. This was his life's work, his secret apostasy against council doctrine, his gift to a galaxy that had not asked for it. 30 years ago, He had begun the seeding program with nothing but a theory and humanity's desperate hope that they could contribute something meaningful to cosmic civilization. "Bring up the Zithkara data," he ordered. The display shifted to show Ambassador Kethmar's species. The genetic markers were unmistakable. Embedded in their DNA for the past 22 years, dormant sequences were now expressing themselves. Their rigid exoskeletons, which had grown increasingly brittle with age due to centuries of artificial gravity living, were regenerating. Their neural pathways, limited by evolutionary constraints from their high-gravity homeworld, were forming new connections that would allow faster processing of complex mathematics. Humanity had not just studied the Council species. They had understood them at a level the ancients had never bothered to examine in themselves. Across the galaxy, in the Council's judgment sphere, chaos was replacing order for the first time in millennia. Councillor Vexani of the White HFY broke protocol, her crystalline form resonating with urgent frequencies. "My people are changing. Our young are developing enhanced sensory organs. Our scientists report improvements to our photosynthetic efficiency. This is unprecedented." Kethmar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of severe agitation. "Scan all Council worlds. Full genetic analysis. Find the source of this contamination immediately." But Sienna Voss still stood calmly on the presentation platform, and now her smile had grown. "You will find human genetic markers," she said. "Delivered through cosmic dust, meteor impacts, and stellar winds over the past 3 decades. We seeded your worlds the same way we seeded ours. Not with conquest, but with gifts." "Gifts?" Kethmar's voice shook with rage and something else, something that might have been fear. "You violated our biological sovereignty. You altered us without permission." "We saved you," Sienna replied, her voice cutting through the chamber with unexpected force. 3 times. The sphere fell silent. Even the energy beings ceased their pulsing. Sienna activated her own holographic display. 17 years ago, a viral mutation began spreading through the Zithkara population. Your medical science did not detect it because it was working on a timeline beyond your lifespan perspective. In 3 generations, it would have rendered your species infertile. Our genetic modifications included immune responses that eliminated the viral precursors. Kethmar's entire body went rigid. 9 years ago, Sienna continued, the Vortani star entered a new solar cycle. Radiation levels increased by 0.03%. A minor change by cosmic standards, but accumulated over centuries, it would have caused cascading cellular damage in your species. The genetic upgrades you are experiencing now include radiation-resistant cellular repair mechanisms. A Vortani elder, her scales dulled by age but now shimmering with renewed vitality, whispered, "Our scientists predicted stellar weather changes but said they were insignificant." "They were," Sienna agreed. "Until they weren't. And finally, 4 years ago, we detected spore-forming organisms in deep space, traveling on solar winds toward 17 Council worlds. The spores would have taken root in your agricultural systems, creating a blight that would have caused famine across the inner rim. Our genetic modifications included enzymatic responses that break down the spore structures before they can germinate." Back on Research Station Osiris, Marcus watched as the Council's own scientists began confirming Sienna's claims. The data was undeniable. Humanity had not just contaminated the galaxy. They had been silently protecting it while the ancient species slept in their certainty. Sophia looked up from her station, her eyes wide. "Doctor, we're receiving communications from younger Council species. The White HFY, the Belmarans, the Tketh Collective. They are asking to meet with human representatives." Marcus nodded slowly. The galaxy was dividing, not along lines of territory or military power, but along a more fundamental axis. Those who understood that evolution was collaboration, and those who still believed in isolated perfection. "Tell them," he said quietly, "that humanity welcomes dialogue." In the judgment sphere, Councillor Vexani approached the presentation platform, her crystalline body refracting light in patterns that expressed wonder rather than judgment. "You gave us these gifts without asking for anything in return," she said. "Why?" Sienna's response was simple, carrying the weight of humanity's lonely centuries before first contact, their desperate struggle to find meaning among the stars, their discovery that survival meant more than just enduring. "Because that is what life does," she said. "It shares. It adapts. It survives together, or not at all." M.A. Elder Orithan had witnessed the rise and fall of 17 galactic civilizations. His species, the Lumens, existed partially outside normal spacetime, their consciousness spanning centuries in what others experienced as moments. He had voted to establish the Council's laws on biological purity, had crafted the doctrines of species preservation that guided 10 million years of cosmic order. Now, sitting in his meditation chamber aboard the ancient worldship Eternity's Gate, he watched those certainties crumble like stars collapsing into neutron density. The younger species are calling it the awakening, his attendant reported, a note of uncertainty in their telepathic transmission. 43 council members have requested emergency sessions to discuss alliance with humanity. The Zithkara traditionalists are demanding Kethmar's removal for not acting sooner. Orathan extended his perception across the galaxy, something few of his kind could still manage. What he saw transformed his understanding of everything he thought he knew about cosmic stewardship. On the Vortani homeworld, elderly citizens were experiencing cellular regeneration that their medical science insisted was impossible. Children were being born with enhanced cognitive abilities that allowed them to grasp mathematical concepts their ancestors had needed centuries to develop. But more than physical changes, something deeper was shifting. The Vortani had been a dying species, their birth rates declining for millennia as evolutionary dead ends accumulated. Now, hope was returning to their breeding chambers. The Methalos, silicon-based beings who had slowly been losing the ability to process their planet's changing atmospheric chemistry, found themselves adapting to environmental conditions that should have driven them extinct within 2 centuries. Their youngest generation was already showing tolerance for chemical compositions their elders could not survive. Across 73 council worlds, similar patterns emerged. Humanity had not just prevented 3 extinction events. They had identified every species' evolutionary vulnerabilities and quietly, methodically, addressed them. Dr. Sienna Voss materialized in Orathan's chamber through holographic projection. Even across light years, he could sense the exhaustion in her posture, the weight of choices that had seemed impossible when she made them. "Elder Orathan," she said formally, "the Council has summoned me for final judgment." "The Council is fracturing," Orathan replied, his voice like ancient starlight. "Ambassador Kethmar still demands your species quarantine. But Councillor Vexani has gathered support from 40% of member species. They wish to establish what they are calling the Collaborative Accord, a new framework for cross-species genetic cooperation." Sienna nodded. "And what do you wish, Elder? You who helped establish the laws we broke." Orathan was silent for a long moment, his consciousness spanning back across eons of memory. He remembered when the Council first formed, when young species were burning themselves out through genetic warfare and biological weapons. The laws of purity had been established to prevent extinction, to create boundaries that protected life from its own destructive creativity. But boundaries, held too long, became prisons. "I wish to understand," he finally said, "why you risked everything for species who showed you nothing but condescension." Sienna's expression softened. "Because we remembered what it felt like to be alone. Before first contact, humanity spent centuries thinking we might be the only intelligent life in the universe. That loneliness shaped us. When we finally met the Council and realized how vast an ancient cosmic civilization was, we felt insignificant. But also grateful. We had been given a gift just by knowing we were not alone." She paused, and Orathan saw tears forming in her eyes. "We wanted to give something back. Not technology, you had better than ours. Not territory, we had barely explored our own region. But we had one thing the ancient species had forgotten. We remembered how precious life is because we had spent so long believing ours was the only spark in an infinite darkness. So we studied you, all of you, and we found that every species was facing quiet extinctions they could not see because they were moving too slowly. We decided that if we could help, we should. Even if you never knew. Even if you hated us for it." Back on Research Station Osiris, Marcus received a priority transmission from Captain Jonas Webb. The colonial ships were preparing for possible evacuation, but something else had changed. 32 alien vessels, representing species humanity had helped, had positioned themselves between the human colonies and the Council's enforcement fleet. "They are forming a defensive perimeter," Webb reported, his voice thick with emotion. The YTH Sarah captain transmitted a message: "You protected us in silence. We will protect you in the light." The Judgment Sphere reconvened, but this time the atmosphere had transformed. Where there had been unity and condemnation, now there was division, debate, and something the Council had not experienced in epochs: uncertainty about their own righteousness. Kethmar stood before the assembly, his chitinous form somehow seeming smaller. "The law is clear. Humanity violated our most sacred doctrine." "The law was meant to preserve life," Councillor Vexani countered, her crystalline body blazing with conviction. Humanity fulfilled that purpose better than we have in a million years. They saw extinctions we ignored because we were too ancient to notice species dying slowly. Elder Orithan finally spoke, his words carrying the weight of ages. I helped write the laws this council lives by. I did so to prevent the genetic wars that once burned across this galaxy. But I wrote those laws when I believed isolation was safety. Humanity has shown us a different path, one where sharing genetic gifts creates bonds stronger than any treaty. The chamber filled with competing voices, arguments, and unprecedented discord. But beneath the chaos, something new was emerging. The absolute certainty that had governed the council for eons was dissolving, replaced by questions that should have been asked millennia ago. Sienna stood quietly on the presentation platform, watching civilizations older than Earth's sun grapple with ideas humanity had learned through desperation and hope. Finally, after hours of debate, Orithan raised his luminous form. The council cannot reach consensus. Therefore, I propose something we have not done in 7 million years. We will allow member species to choose individually. Those who wish to join humanity's collaborative accord may do so. Those who wish to maintain genetic isolation may continue under council protection. The galaxy is large enough for both philosophies. The silence that followed was profound. Not the silence of agreement, nor of defeat, but the silence of a universe holding its breath before transformation. Kethmar's mandibles clicked once, a sound of resignation. I maintain that humanity was wrong. But I cannot deny that they were also right. This paradox will take me lifetimes to understand. As the session ended, Sienna received a message from Marcus. 6 to 7 species have requested to join the accord. More are asking for information. The galaxy is changing. She looked out at the judgment sphere, at the ancient species who had ruled the stars for longer than humanity had existed, and she saw them not as judges or ancients, but as fellow travelers in the vast experiment of survival. The silence we created, she transmitted back, was never meant to be permanent. It was just long enough for everyone to hear what we were really saying. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, species that had remained unchanged for millennia felt the stirring of new possibilities in their DNA. The contamination the council had feared became the gift they had not known they needed. And in that moment, the stars themselves seemed to shine differently, as if the universe was watching its children finally learn to share the one thing that mattered most. Life, in all its impossible, collaborative, defiant beauty, continued. Not in isolation, but together. The silence that followed humanity's reply was not emptiness. It was the sound of 1,000 alien civilizations setting down their ancient certainties and picking up a future they would build together, one shared gene at a time.